All right, you know what I'm saying? So, boom, Bret Hart. Let's talk something about Bret Hart. I woke up today. I thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna get into some Bret Hart shit today. I didn't know what this video was gonna be about, but sometimes these ideas that beat you over the head, they make you realize that this is what you need to talk about, even if you don't initially realize that this is what you need to be talking about. So Bret Hart, this guy, after Hulk Hogan passes away here fairly recently, right? Well, pretty recently. Bret Hart, he goes on, talks some shit about this guy right after he passes away. He says that, Hogan didn't want to put him over back in like 93 or whatever. Hogan, he was selfish. He took Bret's spot at the end of that one WrestleMania where Hogan came out and saved the day. Um, and look, I'm not going to get into whether these things were right or whether these things were wrong, but if we're being real about the facts here, wrestling is fake. At the end of the day, it is just a job. I mean, there's going to be politics involved. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say whether these things are right, whether these things are wrong. But the fact is, the guy just died, man. He just fucking passed away. At least have some respect in these moments where his family now has to get used to the fact that he's no longer with them. At least have some respect uh, for those close to Hulk after the guy just dies to not just completely go out there and shit on the guy about something that, if we're being real, is completely irrelevant in the first place, right? I'm not saying you're not allowed to have an opinion. I get that after people die, people like to sit back and remember them or try to, reminisce on them, fondly. And they try to act as if this person was an angel just because they passed away. Look, dude, we're all gonna die. Billions of people have fucking died over the years. Well, billions, I don't know, number may be a little bit off, whatever. But the point is, bro, we're all gonna fucking die, and we're not all fucking angels, right? So just because another person passes away, let's not now all of a sudden go back in time with our revisionist history and act as if this person never did anything wrong. Hulk Hogan, I get it. He's a divisive figure over a great many things, probably none more so than the whole racist, tape that came out years ago that turned the opinion generally a lot of people had of the guy. I understand that, but if we're talking in a wrestling sense, in wrestling terms, this fucking guy, Bret Hart, going out there constantly making a bitch about this person, making a bitch about that person. This person backstabbed me. This person fucking stepped on the back of my shoe back in 1996. It's like, bro, get the fuck over it. Actually, just move on, dude. Bret Hart is like what? In his 60s or 70s? Either way, he's an old motherfucker, man. You would think at that point in your life, having achieved all the things that you've achieved, you've made some good money, you've made a mark in your chosen profession, the business in which you chose to dedicate your life to. You've made your mark, man. You would think that despite the fact he hasn't had a perfect career, this guy would at least be a little bit more appreciative just of the accomplishments that he does have and the things that he has done. I mean, I get it. You wish this guy would have put you over. You wish that Eric Bischoff would have treated you differently back in like 97 or 98 or whatever. Big fucking deal at this point, right, dude? It was like 30 years ago. Bret, I mean, and don't even get me started about the Montreal screw job. I mean, before I even go too deeply into that, does it not seem as if all these guys who Bret Hart has a problem with, all these guys who he has shat on and tried to insult over the years, this person's stupid, this person doesn't know what they're doing, this guy should have put me over, I was the best thing since sliced bread. Get over your own fucking ass, dude. I mean, it seems like all these people who he does have a problem with are just better than him. Am I not? I mean, am I wrong? It seems like Shawn Michaels, fucking Goldberg, even. I get that Goldberg's not better in the ring, obviously, but more of a draw, a bigger name. Hogan. A lot of these guys who Bret Hart has seemed to have these great issues with are just fucking bigger, better stars than he is. They're either more charismatic, they're bigger draws. Bret prides himself on never hurting anyone. But if we're being real, dude, if we're being fucking real here, that's not exactly something you can sit here and hang your head on and say, I never hurt anyone. Bro, it's wrestling. You're not supposed to hurt any fucking body, dude. So just because you're saying that you were, I don't know, a model professional for however many years, all of a sudden we give this guy a badge of honor now for doing what should be the norm. I'm sure there are plenty of guys in wrestling, who have had a fine body of work, who have also not hurt people, but they also do not blow themselves as much as Bret Hart seems to do, right? This guy, he has a mediocre run, all things considered. Now, I will give Bret, his fair shake. I will give him his due. I'm not going to sit here and act as if Bret Hart is not a legend. I'm not going to sit here and act as if Bret Hart is not an icon in the business. I get that he is a lot of these things, but he's nowhere near as big in his own fucking mind as he believes himself to be. I mean, there is something disproportionate about the way he sees himself versus the way the rest of us see him. We all acknowledge the fact that he's a legend, but he's not, like when you look at his time on top, when you look at he and Shawn Michaels, the time that they spent on top of the company, they were really sandwiched in between two of the biggest periods in wrestling, right? You had the 80s, Bret and Shawn, they did not draw as much as Hogan. They did not draw as much as Savage or Andre or Piper. They did not draw as much as the generation or the era, so to speak, of guys who came after them. After the new generation, you get into the mid to late 90s. You get into the NWO, man. You get into the fucking Attitude Era, Austin and Rock. Bret and um, Shawn Michaels, that is, were really sandwiched in between that time when shit was cooking, right? So when you really look at the period when Bret Hart was on top, not a lot of people really gave a fuck, man. I mean, even if you want to sit here and talk about Bret Hart and Triple H is another one who Bret just has never seemed to like, at least not over the past 30 years, right? Still holding grudges, this fucking guy, Bret Hart. Still holding grudges, man. If you fucking stole his Pokemon card back in 96, he would, leave you to burn a slow, painful death if he saw you on fire, right? This guy, Bret, he will take these things to the grave. And you know what? If he wants to live with that kind of baggage, then that's on him. That's on him, right? You look at him and Triple H. Triple H is better than Bret Hart, man. He may not be as technically sound as Bret. Um, Triple H may not be as technically sound as fucking Chris Benoit. A lot of guys who are not as technically, The Rock is not as technically sound as Chris Benoit. But who gives a fuck at all whether you can do a fucking Irish whip leg sweep uh, at a 10 out of 10 quality. That doesn't fucking matter, dude. That doesn't matter not one bit. Uh, Triple H has provided at least 5 times as much entertainment value over the past however many years. Way more than Bret Hart, if you ask me. Way more than Bret. Like I said, I will give Bret his flowers. I will give him kudos, but he wasn't as good in the ring or as entertaining, if you ask me, as Shawn Michaels. I've enjoyed plenty of Bret Hart matches. I like what he has to offer, but I appreciate what he has to offer on the same level as like a Cesaro. Um, 8 or 9 times out of 10, if you were to ask me, would I prefer to go back and watch some old Triple H matches, some old Triple H promos, or some old Bret Hart matches or Bret Hart promos? Dude, I'm not a fucking nerd. I'm gonna say Triple H. I mean, come on. I'd rather watch Triple H and fucking The Rock, which is not gonna be a technical masterpiece, way more over than I would Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, if I'm being real to you, right? Because at least the two guys involved are way more interesting. Shawn Michaels I like, or Bret Hart is about as stiff as a fucking block of wood, man. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? This dude, Bret Hart, comes up during a time when people don't give a fuck whatsoever about wrestling. Comes along during a very down period. Where fuck all is happening in terms of business. It's almost in the same way that you might have a guy like Seth Rollins, who I guess now some people are calling one of the greatest of all time, just because Seth Rollins made his name during a time when wrestling sucked balls more than any other period, man. Just because you were world champion when the ratings were lower than ever. I don't buy that as a legend, me personally. I'm not saying Bret Hart isn't a legend. Uh, I do believe Bret Hart has drawn money, but again, nowhere near the fucking big star that he really thinks that he is. And if you want to get into the Montreal screw job, okay, let me tell you this. Okay? So Bret, he really thinks that he can just leave, walk out the fucking front door, go to the competition. They've got this huge pay-per-view, right? In Montreal, the Survivor Series, one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year. Shawn Michaels is clearly their guy. He's clearly the one who they're pegging to take the title off of Bret. Like, dude, you are literally going to be leaving in the next 24 hours or so to go to the competition and make a shit ton of guaranteed money, man. And Vince allowed you to do that. He allowed you to go negotiate when he told you that he could not honor your deal because he just didn't have the funds at the time. So he allowed you to do that. We're talking about the guy Vince McMahon who made you a star, made you what you are, put you in a position to where you can go and demand millions of dollars from Turner. He made you literally Bret the Hitman Hart. Nobody would know where Bret the Hitman Hart would be flipping fucking burgers elsewhere if it weren't for Vince McMahon. If we're being real. And then this guy has the audacity to go out there and say, no, we're not going to do things on your terms, despite the fact that you're the boss and despite the fact that you're the one who's basically paid for my house. We're going to go out there and do things the way that I want to. And look, bad on Vince for being the supposed genius that he is. And he gives this guy Bret Hart creative freedom, creative control. It's one thing to give Hulk Hogan creative freedom because he's Hulk fucking Hogan. But when you have a guy like Bret Hart, who draws about as much as a couple flies to a turd at the park. That is not, in my opinion, the best example of business being done here. Because then you put this guy now, you give him the carte blanche, if you will, to now go out there and say, we're going to drop the title when I want to drop the title. In no way, shape, or form should you ever have your performers letting you know what the fuck is going to happen on your own TV. That is taking the complete cuckold, inferior position, if you ask me, and bad on Vince McMahon for that. But you would think this dude, Bret Hart, since he, is apparently this intelligent guy, or at least he probably thinks he is, you would think he would have the, mental capacity and understanding to realize that, hey, I'm leaving. It doesn't do me any good to have this belt anyway. I guess he could show up on Nitro and say he's the WWF champion. But his idea was that he wanted to go and drop it the next night on Raw, or not even drop it, but just relinquish it. So dude, motherfucker. So now we have the Survivor Series literally 24 hours earlier, one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year. Everything is set up for Shawn to win the belt. And you don't want to do that because you don't want to lose in Canada. It's not even your hometown. You just don't want to lose in the fucking great country of Canada, man. You can't lose in an entire country. Or rather, he says that he would have dropped the belt to Shawn if Shawn had not disrespected him by saying he wouldn't drop the belt to you. Dude, what does it fucking matter? Get over your own fucking hype, man. What does it fucking matter? Who cares if Shawn Michaels says, I wouldn't do the same to you? Just do business. Be done with it. Move on. You're gonna go make a shit ton of money elsewhere anyway. It should not fucking matter. It's a whole ego thing to me. It's somewhat of a power trip thing to me. This dude, Bret Hart, he probably sees himself as the ultimate hero in wrestling. I've heard him say that during 97, during that heel run, he says that in his mind, he wasn't a heel. He was still justified. Sure, I guess you could say that. But, dude, you were a heel. Bret Hart, he goes to WCW. Yes, it's a huge missed opportunity on the part of Eric Bischoff and everyone involved because you get this guy right after one of the hottest angles in history. And they really had the chance to do something special there. We never even got Bret versus Hulk. But over the past some odd years, obviously, it seems to me that Bret Hart has been hurting more than Hulk Hogan about never doing that match. Look, would it have been a dream match? Could they have drawn a lot of money? I'm sure they could have, man. But Hulk Hogan, I don't think is hurting nearly as much as Bret Hart about never having that match. It's almost like Shawn Michaels in The Rock. The Rock is hurting far more or less about never having that match than Shawn Michaels is because Shawn has more to gain, just like Bret has more to gain. I'm sure he probably would have loved to have been able to beat Hulk Hogan, just so in his mind he has now achieved even more legendary status. Like, dude, wrestling is fake. You didn't really win the belt. Vince put it on you, right? He gave you that opportunity. He put you in a position to make the most money in the company, despite the fact that, quite frankly, you're not the most charismatic. I don't have the entire WWE roster from back in like 93 or 94 right in front of my face, but I'm sure there were other options who maybe could have done you some more good than even a Bret Hart. A lot of people have said that maybe he's what wrestling needed because he was a smaller guy. And then another thing too as well is that Bret Hart, I believe, took steroids Also, he just wasn't as big as Hulk because Hulk Hogan is just a freakishly large, or was a freakishly large human being. But Bret Hart, I believe, took steroids as well. Like, bro, you're no different. He thinks he's a cut above, even though he's just another good wrestler. He's just another Cesaro. He's just another Minoru Suzuki, or not Minoru Suzuki. What's his name? Takamichinoko or Takamichinoku? Easy for me to say, right? He's just another one of these guys. He's just another fucking Jack Gallagher. He's just another fucking Tony Nese, just another very good wrestler. He had a good look, all things considered. I will say that Bret had a good look, and I will also give him his props for the way that he helped elevate Steve Austin. But he also never put over Steve Austin. He claims to be so selfless, but he never even put over the guy. Not one time. Maybe that would have been the plan at WrestleMania 14. Um, Maybe that would have been what happened had Bret not left. But either way, it never happened. Bret Hart's mostly pretty boring, man. Let's call it like it is. Um, in addition to that, even in the current day, he still opts to sit here and whine and cry and complain. And you know what? If he wants to walk around with that kind of baggage all damn day, every damn day about some shit that happened to him back in '97, then that's on him. That's on him. None of us should feel sorry. None of us should have any sympathy. I do feel bad for the guy, honestly, for getting his career ended by Goldberg. I mean, that's pretty unfortunate. He had, well, like a stroke or something like that. I mean, obviously, you never want to see that happen to anyone. Um, so I do obviously have some sympathy there for him in regards to that, and obviously in regards to him losing his brother. But he seems to talk about himself and his own career more than he does even his own brother. He seems to have more of a problem with Hulk Hogan for never putting him over than he does for Vince and company for their neglect, which led to his brother's death. Um, and with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and close this conversation. Fuck Bret Hart. Um, like I said, I don't hate the guy, but he's a whiny little bitch. I don't like whiny little bitches. And wrestling's fake, so dude, you're not a real tough guy. You're not a real wrestler. You were never a real champion. So get it through your head. You can fuck your own ass as well, Brett. I'm gonna leave all of you guys with that one. I'm gonna peace the fuck up out of here, and I will catch you in the next one.